Welcome back everybody to the daily show where we discuss and do technical analysis on big mega cap stocks. So before we get started, please smash that like button, and 100 plus likes on this video would be greatly appreciated, guys. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Now if you want to support the channel and get my daily trade ideas, my swing trade ideas, live trading, and all kinds of setups, definitely check out their link down below in the description for Patreon. And now let's get right into it, guys. On Tesla stock, it's up 1.5%, and Tesla getting up to 180 and getting a rejection, and now at least trading above all these moving averages right here, also holding above 13 SMA 176.51, trading at 177.46. So that is looking bullish here on Tesla for next week and early as tomorrow morning, Monday's session. As long as Tesla can stay above, I would say 176 to 173 right here, rising 20 SMA, you're going to see a quick trip all the way up to 183, and that is where Tesla needs to break out. Now if you look at my screen, we also have this inverted head and shoulder here on Tesla, left shoulder, head, and the right shoulder. And if this is where to play out, you're going to see a big move here on Tesla, possibly above 200 easily. So watch out going into tomorrow's session, guys. Your line in the sand, the first one, 176.51. Below that, we also have support at 173, rising 20-day moving average, and that is going to be a strong level. And then 170, 50 SMA, and then we can talk about more downside on Tesla. As long as Tesla can stay above all these moving averages right here, 50, 20, 13, and 5, you're going to see another big move on Tesla back up to 183. And soon as we get that breakout over 183 and Tesla can hold 183 as a support, the next stop easily 200 on Tesla. On Google stock, it's up 1%, so Google closing at a fresh new all-time high. And just like I said before that, Google is about to hit another all-time high, or possibly will at least retest previous all-time highs right here, just above 176. And you can see clearly on Friday, definitely getting up to a fresh new all-time high, 177.50, and pretty much closing at all-time highs. Now, if Google actually gets a pullback, well, there will be support at 176. Below that, 173.89, I would say 174, rising 5-day moving average, and then down here 172 to 170 to even 168.57, rising 20-day moving average. Now we do have a strong bull trend on Google stock, and this thing can continue even higher as long as Google can actually stay above rising 5-day moving average, which is sitting really close to 174. The next stop here on Google stock, 180, and that's going to be another fresh new all-time high here on Google stock. So watch out, Google on the move, and this thing can move even higher. On Amazon stock, it's up 0.58%, so Amazon again getting down to 183. And if you look at my screen, 20 SMA actually sitting at 183.15 and pretty much touching that level and then going back up to 185 plus. And now trading in between 20 SMA and 5 SMA on top, which is sitting at 185 to 186. So here on Amazon, guys, it's actually a tricky situation on Amazon. Also, if you look at my screen, I mean, we might be wedging or flagging, whatever you want to call it right here. So Amazon here, definitely looking good for a move to the upside. Oh, come on. Okay, here you go. So Amazon, if you look at my screen, so this is what's happening here on Amazon. It's kind of wedging or flagging, whatever you want to call it. As long as Amazon can stay above 183, definitely it's looking bullish for a breakout over 185 to 186. If that happens, Amazon going back up to 190 again, and this time possibly finally a breakout over 190, and that should take Amazon up to even close to 200 at some point. Now also we do have double top in play. Now we got no confirmation of a double top, but definitely this can play out if Amazon actually breaks under 183 and trades under 183, this white line, 20-day moving average, that is when this double top can actually come into play. And you're going to see a lot more downside down to 181 to 180 right here, 50 SMA, and just below that we have this massive gap, 173.92. So Amazon, yes, it's kind of wedging or flagging, whatever you want to call it right here, but we need that breakout confirmation over 185 to 186, and if that happens, well, then more upside, at least going back up to 190 again. And below 186, 185 right here, these two moving averages, strong level of support here will be 20 SMA 183, and below that 181 to 180, 50 SMA. And that support gives up, you're going to see Amazon pulling back even hard and closing this gap 173.92, and in that case this will be a double top on Amazon, not right now. On Apple stock, it's absolutely flat on the day, and Apple got up to almost 191, and again for the second day Apple now trading below 190. So early as Monday morning, Apple needs to get over 190, it needs to hold 190, and soon as that happens, Apple can easily go up to 195 to 196. And why? Look at this Bollinger Band expanded up to almost 196, so that move is possible above 190 on Apple. Now to the downside, below 190, there is support here on Apple, rising 5-day moving average 188.63, and soon as that gives up, you're going to see a dump off, possibly down to 185, 183, and then 180, and then we can talk about this gap down here on Apple. Not right now with that strong bull trend here on Apple stock on this daily time frame. On Microsoft, it's down 0.19%, so nothing big, kind of a flat day on Microsoft, but look at the pullback down to 5-day moving average right here, 418, low for the day 418 on Friday, and then going back up and also holding above 420. So going into Monday's session, 420, your line in the sand, below that 415, 413, all the way down to 408.45, and below this white line 20-day moving average, you're going to see a bigger dump off all the way down to this gap, which is just under 400. Now, as long as Microsoft can stay above 420, that is still bullish, and you're going to see Microsoft going back up to 426, and then previous all-time highs 430, and possibly breaking over that all-time high and going even higher. On Meta, it's down 0.28%. So Meta here, couple things I want to talk about here on Meta, guys. First of all, yes, we are getting a pullback, but this thing going right back up and holding over 470 and not even getting down to 463.81, 20-day moving average right here. So that is looking bullish. Also, if we are actually a bull here on Meta, and you think about that, Meta can go up another 10-15 bucks to close this gap on top. Well, in some cases, and we talked about it before, where things can go really close to the gap, and then you will see a pullback down to this gap and trapping a lot of bulls right here on top. So Meta, to the point where this thing is really tricky to trade. And why? Because we already saw that playing out, not completely, but it was really close up to this gap. What was it, 481? And then we saw the pullback all the way down to right here, guys, on Friday, 468. So now, question here on Meta, if this thing can hold over 470, well, there is more chances of Meta going back up and closing this gap, at least in the short term, just under 485, and possibly even retesting 490, resistant on top. Now, if this thing breaks down and takes out 470 and then comes down and takes out 20-day moving average right here, which is sitting close to 464, in that case, this is it. And this thing can pull back really hard down to 452, under 464, and then possibly at some point it will come down and close this gap instead of going up and closing this gap, because last time it was really close to this gap and I said we might be coming down here, and I was actually ready to buy the dip, and guess what we get here on Meta? From 415, 414, this thing went back up, and now we got really close to this gap, 481 and some change, and now we are coming down. So it's really tricky to trade Meta at this point, but I think very soon you're going to find out an answer whether this thing will go up and close this gap, or we get a pullback from here and come all the way down here to close this gap down here at 400. On AMD, it's up 1.14%. So AMD, I actually got some puts on Friday. Again, it was same day expiration, and the move was so quick. I regret not sharing my trade with my Patreon group because it was so quick. It was only like few seconds and profit was there over 200%. Because soon as this thing got up to 169, I actually got 165 puts. And immediately, guys, if you go back and look at 5-minute chart, this thing exploded. Came all the way down to 162. I got in at 169, explosion here on my puts, and then sold out for a nice 200 plus percent of profit, and now it's trading at 164.47. So this was back to back 2 days shorting right here on top and making money. Now, am I going to short tomorrow? Absolutely not. I'm not looking to play this stock anytime soon. Right now, looks like we might be getting that breakout, and we do have earnings from Nvidia on Wednesday, so that's going to be a big catalyst to move this stock as well. And that is why I'm not going to play this stock this week, because I can actually get caught up in holding some position in between Nvidia's earnings, and this thing can actually come down or go up a ton. So I don't want to short it. I don't want to buy that dip, and let's just get over with this earnings, and then we can play Nvidia or AMD right after earnings. If you want to play something cheap, well, AMD right here. You can also play MU. Anything is cheaper than Nvidia, so it depends how much money you want to spend, but I think AMD is a better option. Right after earnings from Nvidia, we can play this. Now for tomorrow's session, well, you can see we actually gapped up 2 times and we left 2 gaps open here, and we did close 2 gaps on top when we still have one more on top, 188. So it can come up here, or we could see a pullback at least down to, I would say, 160. So now it's over 164. We did close over 164. Tomorrow, if there is a pullback down to 160, well, even though I don't want to, this will be a buying opportunity if you want to trade AMD tomorrow. 160 gives up, then watch out for 158, 154, this gap down here. That is going to be also a strong level to buy that dip on AMD. Now to the upside, as long as AMD can stay above 164, the next stop to break 50 SMA, 168. And soon as we get that breakout over 168, this thing can easily go up to 184 and possibly up to this gap, 188. On Nvidia, stock is down 2%, so the biggest earnings that is coming this week on Wednesday, at least I would say Nasdaq 100, that's gonna be a market moving event this week. Now, Nvidia stock, well, you see pullback on Friday, and if this pullback actually continues tomorrow's session and maybe into even Tuesday, well, then there is highly chances of going up right after earnings. So things are just pulling back before earnings. Now we gap up tomorrow and this thing runs and runs again on Tuesday. It's really hard to predict something like Nvidia, and especially with earnings, because expectation is really high. The CEO just saying good things about the company, and just everything is so good and so much better that nobody can catch up to Nvidia. And now expectation is so high, if there is something they're missing, well, the stock can drop easily 100, 150 bucks. And not to mention, if the earnings are bad and they're not beating on earnings, well, things can actually turn into a disaster. Now, we all know that just like Elon Musk used to pump Tesla before, this guy can do it even better. The company's bringing in a lot of revenue, lots of orders coming in, and people are just buying Nvidia. Companies are just ordering Nvidia, right? Nvidia chips, Nvidia AI, all kinds of Nvidia crap they're buying. Well, I don't think you saw the paperwork, and I don't think I saw the paperwork, and that is just CEO telling us what's happening, because definitely, well, at least in my book, 20 plus years of experience, I don't see the value that Nvidia should be trading at 1,000. Well, 500 was good enough, maybe even 700, but that is just way too much. This thing is overhyped and overpriced, and it needs to come down. And then we can buy. Definitely a good company. I'm not saying Nvidia is a bad company. I don't like it, but the price of the stock is way too high for us to buy and hold long term. Now, a lot of retail traders, investors, well, we still trade, right? Well, it's just one of those things where things can push higher, and people get into FOMO, and they just buy into more buying, and things are just pushing higher and higher. And for an example, this is what happened before with Tesla in, from what, 2300. What we got here now, guys, we can barely get, a 10% move to the upside, and if we get one, immediately there is a 5% pullback, right? So Nvidia, I think next 15 months to maybe even 2.5 years can suffer the same fate just like Tesla. Even we saw with Google getting a big correction back in 2022. Amazon also getting a correction. This one did, but Amazon and Google went up in a healthy way, where in this case, we'll just gap up and go, massive gap ups. I mean 100, 150, you name it. And this thing was gapping up and going. So this thing is above and beyond. Now, I could be wrong, maybe the earnings are actually real and it's actually true, and things can go up, and that is why predicting Nvidia is almost impossible. So going into the earnings, guys, watch out. If the earnings are good and the CEO can come out with some really good expectation, and he can actually meet with that expectation from Wall Street, you're going to see a massive pump. In that case, well, guess what? Market will gap up just like we saw before. Now, going into Monday's session, key level to watch on Nvidia stock, we need to get over 926. If that happens, Nvidia running back up to 960. Below 926, now there will be support right down here, and that's going to be around 900 to 898, down to even 889. And then this gap, 862. So the math and the levels are simple on Nvidia stock, but if this thing breaks out over 960, that is when it's gone. The next stop, previous all-time highs, 974, and then easily can go up to 1,000. And if they beat earnings, like I said, you're going to see a massive gap up. And also, the expectation is so high, if they miss anything, you're going to see a gap down. But I'm not making any prediction on Nvidia stock. One thing I can say, and that is coming out from my experience, that there is so many earnings on Nvidia. At least last few earnings, this thing was just gapping up and going. So this earnings, we might see a different route where this thing can actually gap down. And that is just my guess. I'm not predicting that, and I think that can happen because Apple, they were just missing earnings before, and I said with this earnings, Apple can actually go up. Even if they miss, they will come out with something. And guess what? They came out with buybacks, right? And the stock is still pumping, and it can go up even more. So in this case, the pumping is probably done at some point, or at least it's done right now. And now there might be a decent pullback. And like I said, I could be completely wrong on Nvidia. So watch out for that, guys, going into Wednesday. On Netflix is up 1.73%, so the consolidation staying here inside this flag and not able to break out over 626. So are we going to see another leg higher on Netflix? Well, it's possible. Friday we had some catalyst and this thing was pumping and definitely trading above all these moving averages right here. So the next stop, 626, 630, and then possibly even 639 right here. Bollinger Band on top expanded up to 639. Now to the downside, if this thing stays under 626 and takes out right here 615, then the next stop down here 604 to 605, and if that's out, you're going to see a drop all the way down to 588. And that's all I have for you guys in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated going into Monday's session.